Go. Okay, so basically what we have here is the trachea. You can see the ribs of the tracheal cartilage. So as you go down, you can see it's splitting off into right and left main or primaries as they lead into an individual lobe. So here's a lobe, and then these are individual lobes. Then these are the lobars, and as the lobars divide, it's going to become segmental. So at the tips here, these are the segmentals. So you can see a really nice clear lobar here. So that's a whole lobe. You can see that's a lobar. And these individual ones are going to be the segmentals. So the right main, primary, lobars, secondary, segmentals, tertiary. And that's the lung piece. So here's your diaphragm right here. So this is the muscle responsible for breathing. And then as we start to move in the abdominal cavity, we're going to have the liver here. Cats have a huge liver with multiple lobes, more lobes than we have in our liver. In the middle of the liver, you should be able to find the gallbladder, which is going to be this little green pouch right there.
Yeah,
So that's
just like this person.
the gallbladder. And then you can see the ducting that kind of goes down here. That's not going to be easily seen on the cat, so we have models for that. As we continue to move throughout the abdominal cavity, one thing that's commonly mistaken for the liver is this, which is shredded. This is a piece of the spleen, so basically it kind of went this direction. It looks like there's chunks of it over here. So that goes here. This is all the spleen right there. This is the stomach, which you guys cut open. You can see you got some friskies in there, or whatever that is. A little piece of grass, right? Cats are notorious for eating all sorts of stuff. And then so it's going to be basically moving into the duodenum, which you can see the first entrance into the duodenum right here. So here's a pyloric sphincter, and then this is going to be the duodenum. You can see the pancreas right there, that kind of little granular, choppy looking piece of it, which is right there next to the duodenum. And then somewhere it'll mysteriously transition into jejunum, which will then mysteriously transition into the ileum. And then once it goes through the ileum, then it gets ready to move into the large intestines. And so here's your ileum, the terminal piece of it. And then this is the beginning of the large intestine. So this is the first part of the large intestine. This is the cecum. You can tell it's got like a little bit of a tip on it, kind of like a little bit of a hook on the tip. And so the ileum dumping into the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestines. And so if you open this area here and open it all up, you can see the entrance or the ileocecal valve that's associated with dumping the chyme into the large intestines. So you'll reclaim a lot of your water. The cat reclaims a lot of its water. It becomes a more and more dry fecal pellet, goes down, and then ultimately into the rectum, which is down here. On the reproductive side of things, or actually let's do the urinary side of things, you've already seen the kidneys because we've talked about renal artery, renal vein, things of that nature. From the kidneys, then, you should see some nice clear little tubes, or not clear tubes, but some little tubes coming off of the kidneys. So here's one right here. This is the ureter. So it's bringing urine from the kidneys, heading it toward the bladder. On this side, this is the ureter right here. So if you follow it all the way down, you're going to follow it, and it's going to connect ultimately with the bladder, which looks like it's kind of been severed from the bladder part of it. So it connects on either side of the bladder. This is a really nice bladder. It's pulled apart really nicely. So that's going to be this. So you're going to fill this up, a pretty large bladder. And then the urethra is going to be this little tube right here. So that's the urethra, and that'll go exit out of the body. So in terms of the reproductive organs, this is a female. So you can see here that you've got the ovaries, and you can see there's a lot of ligamentation still, a lot of liners in this, which is really nice. So it's a nice complete ovary. You got the uterine horns. With the cats, unlike humans, this is endometrialized tissue. So these uterine horns, there's a really nice ovary right there that you can kind of see, that nice little oval shape right there. So the uterine horns are actually endometrialized tissue, which basically means that it's implantable vascularized tissue. So embryos can actually go in here, they can implant into the lining of the uterus, and essentially they can develop. This is the reason why cats and litter animals have litters, is because you can pack 4 little kittens in this endometrialized uterine horn, and then basically they just kind of pop out one after another, so you can have lots of them. Humans don't have that. For humans, we have fallopian tubes, but it's not endometrialized tissue, so it's not intended for embryonic implantation. We've got a pouch-like uterus, which means it has to get down to the uterus in order to implant. If it doesn't, it's ectopic pregnancy, and it's dangerous, lethal for both embryo and mother. And so the uterine horns will converge into the body, which you can see here, of the uterus. So you have kittens lined up here, and they basically kind of go through, and they get go through the vaginal canal, which is deep inside the pelvic girdle, and they basically just kind of have the little kittens like one right after the other. Seems like there's something I'm forgetting, but oh yeah, let's kind of cover a couple of other things associated with the digestive system. This right here is a remnant of something that was larger when you first opened up the cat. It was a big apron that kind of folded over the intestines. This is part of that peritoneal lining, so the serous membrane lining. This is called the larger omentum, the greater omentum. And what it does is it basically covers over our stomachs. So it kind of attaches here at the stomach, folds underneath, and kind of attaches to, in us, the transverse colon. It drapes in front of us like an apron, and it kind of basically holds or gives us structure for our intestines. That way they're just not like, mushing out and just kind of falling all over the place, which is always pleasant. But that's kind of the greater omentum. Sometimes in cats you can see the lesser omentum, but not quite as much. So it's not really that big of an emphasis. So you can see a really nice shot of the pancreas right there. Really nice. Any other questions?
So
I think I pretty well covered everything. Huh?
Duct. Oh, we can't see it in cats.
Which one?
Common
Oh, the duct? Yeah, no. Not so much. That's why we got models for that one. I mean, you can see some of it. You can get the idea if it's really green, but it's a little tough because it's very clear on the model, but it's a little tough here because you kind of have to sort of do some excavation. And I'd rather keep it intact than to start kind of peeling it away and sort of pulling it out.
So for the male, the spermatic cord would just be going
Yeah.
straight down.
For the male, you would have testes right here, and then the spermatic cord would be basically coming up through this region. It would be entering into the body. The spermatic cord is going to have blood vessels, nerves, and the vas deferens. And then so it's like an external conduit to bring that structure from the testes into the body. Once it enters the body, then they separate. Blood vessels go one direction, vas deferens go another direction, nerves go another direction, and at that point they get separated. So it ceases to become the spermatic cord.